Okay. Hello to everyone who is watching this video from home after the event has taken place. Feel free to join us every single month, the first Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. UTC. So please check for your time zone, but you're more than welcome to join us, share your thoughts on universal basic income, and join our community. So our community is currently consists of myself, Daniela, and my co-founder Marcel. We have a keen interest in universal basic income and in making it happen. So we've only really started this project towards the back end of last year to put more effort into it, and it's slowly gathering steam. So I have three exciting topics to talk about. But first of all, let Marcel introduce himself, what he's trying to put into the project and what he's trying to get out of the project.
Hi, I'm Marcel. I think universal basic income is not just a nice to have, but it's going to be a necessity going forward. I think the world needs to wake up to the fact that automation and particularly the AI that's coming forward is going to take away a lot of the work that we need to do. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think we should all be trying to find jobs every time something else gets automated. What we should be doing is every time somebody's job gets automated, we should celebrate because that person no longer has to work. And what we'll have in the longer term as things go is that fewer and fewer people will be needing to work and fewer and fewer people needing to have those jobs. Of course, those few jobs will need to be paid a lot more because otherwise who's going to do them if everyone else has been able to live on a UBI? But I think going forward, we have to wake up and realize that it's not just about a welfare system making the lazy people not have to work. It's about the fact that we all be able to get the benefit from a basic income and contribute to the economy that way. So a lot of the work I'm doing is trying to look at how we can make a UBI work and looking at some of the objections that people have towards it. And try and see it as a positive source for the economy going forward.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very insightful, especially the comment around automation coming for us, and rather than being afraid, we should help it along and make it happen quicker.
No, exactly.
Because it will happen one way or another. It will happen irrespective of how we feel about it. And it has happened before. The Industrial Revolution has changed life as people then knew it. The Agricultural Revolution, thousands of years ago, has changed life how the previous tribes and peoples have known life. And well, now it's our turn to find out what's beyond.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we at the start of our little project, we are keen on having other people come along to share their ideas as well. And one of the things that I have started doing today is to actively reach out to people active in this area. So I've seen a really good write-up about how COVID-19 has or was impacted by universal basic income in the small efforts that some governments had to pay people during the pandemic. I know it's been 4 years already and we're trying to forget COVID-19 as much as we can. But back then, some governments have instituted payments to the lesser well-off in order to keep them going, because the COVID pandemic has predominantly impacted the poorer people, the people that don't have a lot of money to start with, the people who live paycheck to paycheck. As some of us may know, the richer end of the spectrum, they have gained wealth during the pandemic. but it's everyone else that got left behind, and it hasn't changed since. So we're starting to reach out to people interested in the field, trying to further the conversation. I'm hoping that we will have guest speakers as well as guest articles on our blog, and just to, as I said, move the conversation forward. Because in my heart of hearts, I feel as if the conversation has been stuck on the same questions over the last few decades. The question number one is the who's going to pay for it? Question number two is why do those people get it? Whoever those people are is different to the context of the conversation. It may be people who are not a pristine white. It may be women. It may be people who have done something wrong and ended up in prison for whatever reason. And it may be as little as drinking in public. Who hasn't had a glass of wine at one occasion or another? But in some countries it's illegal and therefore somebody's life got ruined. It may be people who take drugs. You never know. Whoever those people are. I do not think that I am the person to make that judgment because I'm no better than any of them. And that brings me on to point number two. Uh, you may have guessed that equality is close to my heart, and I do think that UBI is pretty much the only way to bring about real equality. The wage gap still exists. It even has widened over the last decade. So why not have a UBI and solve the problem? Give every single person, irrespective, again, gender, color, backgrounds, give them the same amount every month, no strings attached, and through that, make people understand that they have the same value as the person next to them. Do you want to add something before I go into a monologue?
Well, yes, on both those points, I'd like to add something. The first one is what I want to get away from with the UBI conversation is that it's a handout. It's a welfare check. These people shouldn't get it because for whatever reason. Because UBI is how the economy will work going forward. In fact, we want to be giving more people more money. Right? Because that is how the economy works. If there's more money flowing through the economy, then more happens. And the market, as we have it at the moment, decides where money should be going and where money should be invested. And the UBI, if we give everybody a UBI, and I mean literally everyone, we should be trying to find more people to give it to, so that those people can take that money and put it back into the economy. And if we give a UBI, it's also not about what's the minimum we can afford. It's about how much can we give to the economy, to put back into the economy. Because the economy works by money flow. And if we can increase the money flow, then we can get the economy booming through a UBI. So I think we need to change the conversation away from who doesn't get it and why and how little and how much. This is how we're going to get the economy moving. And that brings me back to the second point that you're making, which is about the wealth distribution. And again, if we consolidate all the money in a few people, there's no economy because there's not enough money flowing. Everyone's just, the few rich people are just hanging on to it, and the poor people don't have enough money to turn things through. As we've discussed previously, you can have a very high equality with nobody having anything. Mm-hmm. Everyone's poor. It's also equality. But if we've got a lot of money, and there is a lot of money in the world at the moment, and we make sure that money is going through the economy and that the money is flowing through the economy, then we don't have to worry about equality and how are we taxing the wealthy and things like that, because everyone's going to be better off because there will be more money flowing through the economy. So I think a lot of it is about changing the conversation about how UBI is a benefit to the economy, right? It's not about finding some way to give people enough food so they can survive, like the welfare state is. And I think changing the conversation is going to be very, very important going forward.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. And having heard some people who really would benefit from it say, no, I do not want money into my pocket every month, because then other people who are just as poor as me, they get it also.
Yeah.
Changing those thoughts, um, making sure, allowing people to come to their own conclusions, but putting the right information out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So, one thing we haven't mentioned yet is for all those at home, we're quite focused on changing the conversation, making change happen. It may appear at the moment as if we're just having a little blog, a monthly get together. Uh, and I can assure you that this effort is going to grow. We will go out there, we will speak to people, we will invite people to come here and speak to us. And it will gain steam before long. And as Marcel pointed out, automation is happening and it will only speed up. And what are we going to do then? So let's prepare ourselves for when that time will come. Uh, Most certainly in my lifetime. And that's why we need to take action now. So for anyone out there who is interested in joining us, do get in touch, email us, give us a ring, um, write your own article and submit it onto our blog. Join us here on our call. Get in touch and make your voice heard.
So there's one other thing I want to add as well, based on my last month. So I had two things I want to add. Firstly, I had a big look at the Irish corporation tax and why that was so low, and people talking about, they're going to have to raise it and things like that, and it's going to lose the benefit. As to why people think that low corporation tax is the best thing in the world. Now, if you read the article that I've published, which goes into my analysis, we can see that actually that corporation tax it's not about lowering corporation tax that benefits the economy. In fact, the US has one of the highest corporation taxes in the world, and they are definitely a booming economy. What we do find is that lower corporation tax creates a downward spiral for people always trying to get better, lower tax, so that they can get the corporation taxes used. But what it means is there's less and less money in the pool. So I think one thing that we also need to talk about is how we get back to the whole taxing, and people thinking about taxing being the way the economy is boosted, because we haven't got a way of getting money from personal income tax if people aren't working, which is currently seen as, it currently is the biggest source of government income is through personal income tax. So there's also something we need to address globally, is how we're going to just, even without a UBI, how we're going to get enough tax into the government systems if we're still relying on people having jobs going forward. So it's not just about individuals, it's also about governments and taxing going forward. So I would encourage people to read the article that I published last week around corporation tax, and whether it's lowering corporation tax is the right thing to do, or raising corporation tax. The second thing I want to point out is I read a book recently called A World Without Work by Daniel Susskind, and I highly recommend that book to everyone who wants it from an economist who's been studying this for years and has now written a book about it. And he will highlight very much that the world is going towards the automation and AI and jobs being reduced. And he also mentions UBI. Unfortunately, he thinks the right way forward is the conditional basic income, which is like why only certain people should get it, and also that you should only get it if you contribute to society in some way. And I think that's a bit of a shame that that's the opinion of this economist. But it's definitely a worthy read, and I think it's a couple of things we need to discuss and get out there as well, as to why is there this, even from a a good economist who's been looking at thinking that we still need to consider who shouldn't get it, basically, and you should only get it if you do something else in return. And I think that that conversation needs to be had as well.
So I have to admit I have not yet read the book. It's on my list. For me, first of all, the you only get money if you contribute technically is a quid pro quo. And it leads to the more powerful taking advantage of the lesser powerful one. Another thought that pops into my mind is that women's work, like bearing children, raising children, doing all of the cleaning, all of the cooking, all of the housework, looking after the elderly parents, looking after the elderly parents of the male partner, and everything else, is a
Exactly.
labor of love. It does not need to get paid. Labor of love. It's just because that's what you do. Whereas a man's work is proper work.
Yeah.
And who is the one who takes the decision who gets paid? It's a man. A man gives man money, not women. And that, again, for me, is a problem.
Regardless of whether there's sexism or not, they will, who decides what is worthy work? What is whose work is worthy of contribution and therefore worthy of a UBI. But it's that whole conditional aspect that UBI removes, that everybody, no matter who they are, no matter what they do, no matter where they're from, gets an income. And we don't have to ask any questions. We don't have to draw any lines in the sand. It's a universal basic income. It's for everyone.
Exactly. To simplify the system, cut your costs on the whole justifying that some people don't get it. All of that means testing, whatever the means are. Yeah, there's no benefit in that, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Any other thoughts at this point?
Like I said, one of the things I want to focus on going forward is the taxing system, because it's going to become critical going forward as well. Because a UBI, being able to introduce a UBI, is going to be a lot easier the sooner we do it than the later we wait for it. Because if governments continue to rely on personal income tax as a source of revenue, and that starts going down because less people have jobs, then there's going to be less money available to fund a UBI. So we actually get the situation will get worse and worse as we move forward and become harder and harder to introduce UBI. The same way poor countries will struggle to introduce UBI because there's just not enough money in their economy. I mean, there's enough money globally for a global UBI at the moment, but if the economies start reducing in size because there's not enough work out there, and all the money's been concentrated with the wealthy few, then there will become harder and harder to introduce UBI going forward. So looking at how much needs to be shifted away from personal income and how that can move forward, and just doing the numbers, I think, is important going forward.
Yes. And I would like to add that in addition to doing the numbers on tax the way it should be done, needs to make sure that people who should be paying tax are paying tax.
Yes.
Because you mentioned Ireland, for example. A lot of companies that are headquartered in Ireland also have another domicile in the Netherlands. And just by moving profits around a couple of times, they basically end up paying very little to no tax at all. And that's companies. Then on top of that, we have people with a certain amount of net wealth who can afford to not be tax resident anywhere and simply have the money pretty much tax-free. So there are a lot of loopholes that should be applied equally to everyone, not only one end of the spectrum.
Yeah, and anyone who thinks rich people can't afford a wealth tax just needs to remember that Elon Musk lost half his wealth when he bought Twitter, and he didn't even get affected by it. So they can afford it.
They can indeed. Any final thoughts for today, or any further thoughts for today?
Not at the moment. I think I've talked too much already, a little bit. Anything from you?
Not at this point. As I said, I'm really excited about devoting a little bit more time to this project, to reach out to other people, to build a community around universal basic income, to connect up with other projects who are working on this topic, and ultimately make sure the people have the information they need, that when and if, or when there are referendums on universal basic income, that they have the information to take the decision they want. So if they want to say, no, we don't want universal basic income, then they should know about what that actually means, rather than relying on certain types of media scaring them into saying no.
Yeah, exactly. Informed decisions.
Yes. So I'm excited about all of the positive news coming out of our projects in the next few weeks and months. And I'm excited about meeting you all out there in our calls and in some of the upcoming in person events as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good. Then I hope to see everyone next time and more
Yep.
people as well.
Yep.
And we'll speak soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.